Just finished watching Breaking Bad finally. We don't have anyone on the stream right now, so I guess I'll just talk for a little bit. Breaking Bad. It's good. It's fine. I wouldn't put it best TV show of all time. Appreciate everyone jumping on. I'm waiting for my partner, Austin Krell, who is late. So I'm talking about Breaking Bad. I literally just finished watching the end of the series. I was a big Better Call Saul fan. I'd watched the first season of Breaking Bad years ago and heard so much about it, what a great show it was. But I agree with Yammer. I think good show, solid. But when you talk about, like, when you compare it to shows like The Wire, I just don't think you can even, like, I don't even think you can compare it. And you think about, maybe people say Breaking Bad was slightly more accessible to a fan base than The Wire. The Wire really required a lot of attention to detail, a lot of viewing problems through multiple lenses, seeing things from different angles, from different people's perspectives. And I think you could argue that Breaking Bad is a little bit easier to consume, but the idea that you'd compare the two as the greatest shows of all time, I just don't see it. Now, maybe the greatest show of all time that broadcast with commercials, okay, maybe. You know, I could maybe say it had a nice arc, that it was maybe better than Sopranos on balance because it ended in a really good way. But I think the highs of The Sopranos at its best, the highs of Boardwalk Empire at its best, the highs of Game of Thrones when it was at its best, were all much, much better than Breaking Bad. So I'm just waiting for Austin, just for those of you who've joined. Feel free to start filling in questions and I'll answer any questions. I literally just finished watching the series Breaking Bad. I want to really be ready for the next season of Better Call Saul. And so I finally just went and binged it. I had watched the first season when it first came on, and found my way back to it. So again, I think Better Call Saul is a better show. I think it doesn't have the same excitement level. Obviously not as many guns, but the characters are really interesting. And quite frankly, these two guys, at the end of the day, they had each other's backs. But are they the best characters of all time? Not even close. Not even close. Good show, not a great show. All right, let's okay. So let's get into some Sixers questions. Now that I've wasted enough time for Austin to be late, as he is wont to do while he was fixing his hair. You could have just come on.
That's
time. You could have just come on time with a hat on, but you didn't. You didn't want to wear the hat, so you went and fixed your hair.
That's actually exactly what I did.
I'm an analyst. I know what it doesn't take me long to figure things out.
Saw the sleekness of it.
Yeah, so you're gonna just leave 10 people here waiting for you while you do your hair. That's fine. That's fine. I didn't worry about my hair. Maybe I should put a hat on.
Wow.
Give us a good hat to host ratio.
Yammer McYambags. Oh, is this talking about us or
no? I was talking about Breaking Bad. I literally just finished watching it right before we went live. So let's just jump into some questions. Anthony says, think Simmons is serious about working on mid-range game and corner threes.
Well,
you were on the calls today, right?
It was my question.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't even make him. He could have said anything he wanted to.
What was the question, first of all?
I said, what are you working on with Sam Cassell? and he said he like volunteered corner threes, mid-range game. He said something like lane threes, which I guess means like above the break. I guess that's what that means. And then finishing at the rim. And I mean, he was like very eager to volunteer that information. So I guess that means he's serious about it. Again, we've been through this rodeo so many times before. Perhaps maybe it was asked in a different context. So, maybe it's typically asked in a different way that doesn't really spark him to bring it up himself. But I mean, he volunteered that information on his own. So, I mean, take it for what you will.
Yeah, that's great. Any question that gets Ben Simmons talking about taking threes is a good question. So, do you think? Because I mean, he met with us. Was it Friday? And he was asked by Howard. None of the rest of us asked him about it.
When you know Howard's there, you just don't need to ask because you know it's coming.
You don't need to. You see Howard, you know he's going to get a question, and he's not going to get passed over, and you know he's going to ask about that because he doesn't know anything else about the team. It's literally the only question. If he's got Joel, he's going to ask him about conditioning, and if he's got Ben, he's going to ask him about shooting because literally that's the extent of his awareness of the team. But other than that, great at what he does.
I mean, someone told, I forget who it was, someone told me that he goes to games, listens to the first media session, then goes home. Like he doesn't even, that was you. Okay. I mean, I don't want to call the guy out, but I mean, you're
I mean, he calls everybody out. Look, I'll tell a quick story while we're waiting on some other people to join. And I first met Howard in like the Chip Kelly era Eagles. I met him at Novacare in the training complex. We were eating dinner. He sat down with Dave Spadaro and myself, and we're sitting there and we're eating. And I said, Howard, you get a bad rap. So this is like 2012, maybe. I said, Howard, you get a bad rap, but I probably agree with your takes 80% of the time. And he looked at me and he said, if you agree with me 80% of the time, I'm not doing my job.
When did you cover the Eagles?
I wasn't covering the Eagles. It was like I've been there 3 times, so I was not on the beat. No, I've been there for different specific things 3 times.
Wow.
Yep. Like Chip Kelly and Deuce Staley.
Yeah.
Chalk Talk. Couple other those kind of things.
Because like he's a nice. I met him too. He's a nice guy. I mean, he just his personality. People only know from the radio or from his annoying sports questions. But I mean, he's a nice guy overall.
Yep. Okay, so thanks to everyone who is on right now. I guess they're not loving the Howard Eskin talk. We're starting slow, quite frankly, because I'm watching how many people are on versus what we're used to, and we're taking it a little bit slow. But Austin, why don't you give us today's highlights from post practice in Camden? What did Doc say? Ben talked. Whoever else talked. Give us the highlights.
Well, I think one thing that has sort of stood out to me, more so than I guess I would have thought, is probably the fact that Daryl and Doc are very like voluntarily and happy to go to bat for Ben Simmons, and then that was something that people were like, oh, they're going to trade one, they have to trade one. Daryl's going to trade Ben. Ben doesn't shoot. I mean, Doc could not be raving more about Ben in the first couple of days of camp. And I mean, I guess you could make the argument like, is he trying to trade? Is he trying to boost his trade value? I mean, everyone knows what Ben Simmons is around the NBA. There's not much more you're going to say to really influence his trade value right now. So I mean, genuinely, like I think they want to get Embiid and Ben playing free, and they're hoping that will kind of unlock them a bit. But I think you look at like Brett Brown's ideas of offense, which laissez-faire type thing. Whereas like there's going to be more structure here, and like laissez-faire, like the very like meaning of that is freedom. Like you have the freedom to sort of read things organically and you know, and do it your own way. But that can, and a lot of times, if the offense is stalled, if there isn't a lot of space, if you don't have that structure, it can sort of lock you up too. I think they're trying to free Ben and Joel by actually implementing an offense that makes sense for them and empowers them to be better. But I mean, Ben said it himself, like Doc is empowering him to be the best version of himself. Doc's been amazing thus far. And keep in mind, all the you know, buzz was that Joel was big on the Doc hiring, but no one really had heard anything from Ben. But Ben says Doc's been amazing. And you know, that's sort of the main vibe I get. They're not giving too much in terms of like what goes on, you know, who's really standing out. But, you know, when asked, Ben volunteered that Dwight was the standout guy. Like Dwight's, you know, he said is vocal, is a great leader. And that's what you signed them to do, really.
So what we've learned is your favorite economist is so laissez-faire is
this is like back from like freshman year of college economic theory. I forget. Laissez-faire. I forget who is that.
I was just looking it up. God, I got so many of those names in my head.
It's not Machiavelli, but I keep thinking of Machiavelli.
I'll look it up. Let's go into questions. So let's go into Milad. Milad, let me know if that I'm pronouncing it right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for interacting. I really want to pronounce people's names correctly, so thank you, and let me know in the comments if it's correct. One realistic signing you guys want to happen. So the team is right at the roster limit. Is that true?
They cut two guys, and I don't know if it was cut, if it was like standard procedure with getting rid of Justin. Whatever his name was, unfortunately.
Justin Robinson. Yeah.
And then Janae, the other guy that got rid of. I think one of them is, at least one of them is going down to an Exhibit 10 deal, but their roster is effectively set, I think, at 18 now, which makes, you know, the difference between, you know, the Danny Green, Vincent Lapoyer, and Terrence Ferguson coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I just sort of don't know the answer to that question because there's so much unknown about this team. And I think Daryl put it really, really well. He said, you know, we don't want to waste our bullets right now because we might need different bullets come, you know, different month. And that's 100% true. I mean, I have no idea who you know, you should, you know, anyone should want them to sign right now, because we don't know what the needs are at the moment. We think we do, but that could be much different, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now.
Yep. Totally agree. Mike, the NBA guy, asks how many people make up this channel. I only thought it was Brock. Welcome, Mike. Really appreciate you coming. Brock was your gateway drug for the Painted Lines. Let's just introduce ourselves. So I'm Jason Blevins, Jay Blevins, NBA on Twitter. I cover the 76ers on the beat, and my partner here, Austin Krell, also covers the team on the beat. So we write for the paintedlines.com. We cover the team on a day-to-day basis. So we're the ones in, pre-COVID in the arena, covering the G League team, covering the Sixers team in the locker room on a day-to-day basis. Brock, Chris Dybler, and Diago are three guys who do a ton of our breakdown videos. They do a lot of highlight draft stuff. You just see them do a ton of the sort of deeper analysis. And then we've got a bunch of other folks that we bring on that are in our sphere, and we bring them on. You'll see Justin Persecity tomorrow. We're going to do a player preview for Seth Curry. He's going to be on. So, you're going to see a lot of us. Rob Lange from the Philly Madness.
Is it Lange or Lange?
What's that?
Is it Lange or Lange?
I'm not sure. Let's ask him next time. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of us, and we have a great time together, and we give each other a hard time, and we appreciate every one of you who tunes in. Let's get back to Mike. You also said they got set of the Blue Coats. Yeah. So again, like I said, we consider ourselves the two-way outlet. We really are passionate about what the Sixers and what Philadelphia can expect coming in the talent pipeline. I personally covered virtually every Blue Coats game, including games on the road for the last 2+ seasons, as well as covering the Sixers themselves. So we really try to tie together for you that talent pipeline, and we call it the Blue Route, right? Because the Blue Route sort of connects Delaware to Philadelphia, and we really take that seriously, and we really like it. So if you go back in time, our record is very clear. You can search our channel. When we talk about Shake Milton, we were talking about Shake Milton when he was in G League training camp as a rookie. So we try to be the people that can really tell you what to expect, but really appreciate you being here.
When you go to meet Jason, just be aware. He's going to shake your hand, and he's going to shake it real hard. I was deceived by the grip. The grip really messed me up the first time I met Jason. It was a very firm grip. I had like a noodle arm, and he was just shaking me up and down. I wasn't ready for this, and I was like shaking my hand.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Forewarned is forearmed. Brock is the weed that blurs the painted lines. Listen, we don't like blurred lines. We like painted lines.
What did you think of
Adam Smith? Kyle, thank you so much. Adam Smith, thank you. I'm trying to Google this while Austin is giving a real answer. I'm trying to slyly Google Wealth of Nations. Boom. Thank you so much. You nailed it, Kyle. Appreciate that.
Yep.
If you didn't know that you were going to get economics talk on a sports podcast, you just haven't watched me enough.
Next week we have perpetuities and annuities coming up on next week's episode.
Yeah, we're going to cover what is socialism, since we're really going to dive into capitalism today. Yeah. Kyle, thanks for watching, and really thanks for that. Nadir, welcome back, buddy. Appreciate you. Okay, so let's go to another one. Shake Milton is plus 10K for most improved player this year. Is that a good line? Is that worth putting $100 on, Austin?
Let me ask you this.
Financial advisor?
What is your policy on betting? Because we both cover the team. I don't know that
I don't like to bet. I mean, regardless of the I don't think covering the team has necessarily made me any better at predicting wins and losses. I think generally I get the sense of which players are rising. And I get a sense early in a game, sort of, I've seen so many games, how it will kind of play out. But I've never been much of a sports bettor, really. So I don't think I would necessarily be any better at it. Except now you can bet at the end of a first quarter.
You can bet on literally anything.
And you bet at the end of a first quarter, it's almost free money when it comes to the Brett Brown Sixers. You know how games
they'll have a lead, that's for sure. But to answer this question, if you look at the pattern of award winning in the NBA, it's going to be a feel good story where the guy just comes out of absolutely nowhere. And I feel like Shake Milton put a lot of people on notice last season with his performance, where he just was shooting quite literally the hell out of the ball in the second half. So I don't think he's that's good value, obviously, but I don't think he has really any kind of shot because people know who he is. I mean, Bam Adebayo people knew who he was, but he was very much a role player. And then he shoots out of a cannon this season and is a full-fledged top 15, 20 player in the league. So
yeah, but I do think so. 10K is 10 times your money back, roughly.
Sure.
Does he have a 10% chance? I do think so, because he was just under 10 points per game. A lot of these voters, really, as much as they will tell you they can analyze film and all this, they do look at box scores. So a guy that is just under 10, so in single digits per game, and then jumps up to what we think will be like, 14 to 16, in a really improved role on a team that might go much deeper. It wouldn't surprise me. I think. Let's go to this question: Is Shake Sixth Man of the Year?
It's just never the guy who's the fourth or fifth option on the team. It's always the guy that like goes from like a big question to like an undisputed number one, number two,
like Devontae Graham or someone like that.
Yeah.
All right. So is Shake a Sixth Man of the Year candidate? And Cody, appreciate this. I think it's a great question. We'll also say we did last week. We did a Shake Milton preview podcast. We did probably an hour or so, maybe 2 hours for knowing us. Really diving into Shake, what he needs to improve, what to expect. So I invite you to look at that video. But we talked about this. So Austin, what do you think?
I think they're going to toe the line between, like, is he a starter? Is he a six-man? I think if he stays consistently in that six-man role, he has I would say one of the better chances in the league of players that could win it. But I mean, you got to average like 15 or 16 a game to be a six-man of the year, and I don't know if I'd see that.
Yeah, I do think that's right around where he is, but I agree with you. I don't know if he starts too many games for people to think about that.
Yeah.
Because, that's just the tricky part. Kyle, so you're giving us a lot of love. Love watching you guys and seeing you guys popping up on the Zoom. Thank you. Those are harder than you think because you don't exactly know when you're going to get called on. Austin, you've been through this. So you sort of have to create a list of questions, and as people go ahead of you and ask those questions, you got to mark them off the list because you don't want to be the guy that says, "Ooh, the guy before me asked my question."
That's Ricky Pompey and me last week.
What? No, stop! Don't say that. Okay, let's get back to some. But Kyle, really appreciate that. So let's go to the bench. Cody asks, which young bench pieces do you think will take the biggest leaps? So you have Shake, questionable whether he's a starter or a bench guy. Thybulle, Korkmaz, or the rookies, Maxey. And let's not even talk about Joe and Reed other than to say, don't expect for them to really contribute much for the Sixers. You have to be in sort of the top 10 of the rotation to get consistent playing time. I think Reed has a long way to go from a skill set standpoint. And I think Joe, although in his Zoom, I think you were on that, did look like a little bit fuller, at least upper body than we last saw him in college. So he may have put on some weight, but I think he's going to have to get stronger. So Austin, Shake, Thybulle, Korkmaz, or Maxey, who's taking the biggest leap?
I think Thybulle's game is too specialized to be considered a leap kind of guy, and I just don't think Korkmaz is a consistent rotational piece. I just don't. If I had to guess, I would guess Shake, and it's only because Maxey, you can't really call it a leap if there's no baseline for him to jump from because he's a rookie. So I would guess it would be Shake.
Yep. I think there's a real chance for Maxey just based on what I've seen. He definitely looks like he's added muscle. Shake said he's added muscle as well, but Maxey told us on draft night he added, or I think the day after, he added 3 to 4 inches to his vert, and then I saw his legs in some of those videos out with Chris Johnson. And it looks really clear, like his legs are just thicker, and that is what he's going to need to really turn the corner at the NBA level, fight through contact, keep his body under him. There's a lot of things. It's going to help his shooting, having a stronger base. It's going to help his defense. So, yep.
He and I have been putting in that work on the Peloton together.
There you go.
There we go.
Peloton.
Yeah.
This is why you gotta follow Adam Smith. You get that Peloton money like Austin. Melvin says you guys are clutch with the Daily Sixers videos. Appreciate them a lot. It's amazing that a team can have this much to talk about. But here we are. It's training.
It's low, and no one wants to talk about them anymore. So
yeah, we don't need to go into that. Okay, so Melvin. Melvin also says Shake, Maxey, Furkan, Matisse stock going to be high by the end of the season. Hope that it's high by the trade deadline. Just saying. Hope that every one of those guys you just listed plays really well heading into the trade deadline.
I hope Burke is just shooting 65% from three on like 4 times per game.
No, it's gotta be a reasonable number, not like that can't be right. It's gotta be like 46%. And then he becomes a whole different player. Okay, so let's go to another one. Seth Curry. Can Seth Curry be the closer for this team with his shot creating, or with the ball being Embiid and Simmons' hands? So there's a couple of things here. Is he the closer with the ball in his hands, or can he be that sort of outlet, catch and shoot, take the final shot on a catch and shoot option? Or do you think the other two guys still run the end of game?
Well, yeah. I mean, so Doc said today that Ben's the initiator. I mean, he's the facilitator. So I would, what that means to me is that at the end of a game, the point guard is going to be Ben Simmons. I mean, why would you say that about him throughout the first 3 quarters, but the last quarter he's not? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think Seth is the kind of guy that can create off the dribble. I don't want to limit him to like he's just a shooter. I think if you try to limit him, you're going to miss out on some pretty cool skill sets that he has and some unicity that he brings. But I don't know that he can be a closer, but I think he's probably like the second or third best shot creator on this team.
Yep, I agree. Nadir asks, and he's got 2 questions here I want to hit back to back because I think they're connected. Why is Shake getting this hype? He had 2 good games last season. And then he says, I think Thybulle is more likely to win 6th, not Shake. So here's the thing, Nadir.
Shake's stretch was not 2 games. It was like, I think 14 games.
Yeah, but I want to go beyond the games because I think this is one of the things we do think we can bring you guys is we're in the gym with them. We are seeing them pre-game practices, after practice shoot-arounds. So we see what skill sets these guys have in a non-featured role. We've seen what they don't have, which is just as important because you can hide a player's deficiencies at times when they're not your star. You can't hide your star's deficiencies, right? But Matisse Thybulle, I think, for him to take a leap into 6th man of the year, he's got to just be a much better dribbler because right now the guy, you don't want him taking 2 dribbles. He is a guy you want back cutting, catching lobs, catching passes and dunking. You want him catch and shoot, really work on the 3-point for him. But without the ability to sort of attack a closeout, put the ball on the floor, do good things with it, pass it, or attack the basket off the dribble, it's hard to really put you in the 6th man of the year conversation. And even though you may not have seen that maybe in games, it is a real deficiency, and you see it on a day-to-day basis. He just doesn't have an advanced handle at the NBA level. Shake, while he's not as athletic a player, he can just do a lot more things. And 6th man of the year, quite frankly, doesn't factor in defense very often. I can't think of the last defensive-minded 6th man of the year. So I think for all those reasons, Shake's got a better shot at it. It's not a guarantee, though. Carlo, appreciate you coming on. and you ask, what do you think Mike Scott's role will be under Doc? Can he be the ideal backup power forward along with Dwight Howard? Lots of impact there.
I actually like the idea of Mike Scott being a small ball five. I think it's weird. It's wonky, but I think sometimes you have to be weird like that in basketball to make something work. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think he was so in shambles on offense last year that it bled into his defense. I mean, he couldn't defend anybody. He was essentially like one of the team's biggest negatives, even if like the numbers don't show it. But I think with spacing, you can get right with the coaches this year. There's some set offenses that make sense. I think he's like a tough guy first and foremost. He's a veteran presence, but he's a guy that can you can stick out there and incredibly shoot the ball.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I talked about it a few days ago on another one of these. I really believe that Brett Brown wanted Mike Scott crashing the offensive glass. And I think because of that direction, he got caught a lot of times with his feet not ready to catch a shot and shoot because he was thinking the shot might go up from someone else, and he was starting to think about crashing the boards. So, when you watched a lot of the hot potato type shots that he had, his feet were just not ready to shoot, and he did shoot quite well historically in his career from three. I think if Doc simplifies his role, says space the floor, grab rebounds on defense, try not to be a liability on defense, catch the ball, shoot the ball, don't overthink it, and no more of this complicated if-then-else sort of instruction, then Mike Scott can flat out shoot the basketball. So, we should mention though that it is Monday the 7th, and he has not reported to camp. He is in COVID protocols. Some of you may have seen that. Some of you may not have. I don't know that we've done a live stream where we've discussed that, but it was confirmed that Tyrese Maxey and Mike Scott are both in COVID protocols, so they have not joined the team yet. There's valuable time early in camp that he's missing.
What do you think is the probability that there is a season pause because of positive testing, or this becomes a major issue? Because I don't think that's getting talked about enough, to be honest.
I have a feeling the reason they broke it up into two halves is that they're prepared to reassess and go back to a bubble if they need to. So, they didn't release the full 72 game schedule yet. So I think there's a chance. There is a chance. You look at what's happening with the NFL and versus the NBA bubble, their approach right now is more like what the NFL has tried. And very recently, the NFL has come under really big problems. One last thing I want to say about Mike Scott, not to make it a Mike Scott podcast, but he connects with fans for a reason, and he is an incredibly unselfish, kind, caring person. So he is a really, really underrated teammate and has always been generous with his time with us. So from the day he arrived, he was generous with his time. He took the time to give us real answers and real quotes. He understands the game. So nothing but good things to say about Mike Scott there. Okay, so let's go back to Ben Simmons. Marky 215, appreciate you very much. You're talking about a breakout season for Ben Simmons. Don't expect him to be a sharpshooter. Good. But I think he'll shoot more mid-ranges with confidence. It's all about confidence. And I think his driving game, he's got to dunk the ball. He's got to stop trying to lay it up soft. He's got to want to get to the line. What do you think about the mid-range? Austin, again, you interviewed him today. He talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to mislead anybody. I I'm very much in the mode of you need to prove it in order for me to buy what you're trying to sell. If he takes jump shots, great. If he doesn't, okay, I'm not going to harp on it. I've never been one to say like, oh, I think it's the end of the world if he doesn't shoot jump shots. But I mean, if he's confident, he should do it. I think what people can't do is you can't come out with like this set of like, okay, the instructions say I got to shoot 3 times per game from no, that's not how you play basketball. It's robotic. If the shot is there and you're comfortable with it, it's a shot you practice over and over again, take it. And whatever the result is, fuck it. Like, who cares? I just don't think that it's smart to put him in a situation where it's like the value of the shot he is taking just isn't the value. Like the odds of him making the shot are so low that there's no value in him taking that shot. Like, I don't need him taking pull-up 17-foot jump shots. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, sure, like the fans will be able to run with that, but get to the free throw line, get to the rim, and if you're open, shoot it. That's all.
Yeah, the only way that you have to shoot 55+% on shots in the 15 to 17-foot range, 15 to 20-foot range, for it to even make any sense at all, especially for a guy that's never going to get fouled shooting a jump shot.
What if he does? What if someone just fast the living shit out of him?
But why would they, right? So the reason you want him to take the mid-range is to force them not to sag off of you. And if they're sagging off of you, you're never getting to the line. So your absolute best case scenario is less valuable than a shot at the rim or a shot from 3. So you have to shoot 55%. And historically, we went into it in the Ben Simmons preview pod. You know, last year he shot like 29% or something on those kind of shots. So you have to make such a leap. It's one thing to say confidence. Look, you want a guy to feel comfortable, but that's never been his game. It wasn't his game in high school. It wasn't his game in college. Hasn't been his game here. So there's no real reason for him to feel comfortable with it.
But he was way more willing to shoot. But I think that goes back to like the environment. Not as many cameras, not as many people in attendance.
Yeah.
The spotlight isn't there. But people always say like shoot the shots you practice. I think what that looks like for Ben Simmons is like what Doc, like what he said today. Mm-hmm. Spot up corner threes, just catch and shoot. Emulate practice as much as you can, just like you're in an empty gym. Run sets for him to get a look at the free throw line if you really want it. But to expect him to be like pulling from 30 is ridiculous. I mean, I don't think anyone expects that. But
yeah, and if you think about Ben Simmons primarily being the ball handler initiator, when he doesn't have the ball, his area to roam is either as a screen setter, right? Around the free throw line or top of the key sort of area. So that doesn't really have a good path to the corner for the corner 3, or he's going to be in the dunker spot. And if he's in the dunker spot, he then on a drive, he should really be either presenting himself available to get a dump off, or he should be sprinting back to the 3-point line in the corner and ready to catch. And that is different than a Matisse Thybulle, who's going to sprint down the floor on offense in transition, sprint directly to the corner and wait to catch the ball, or Furkan Korkmaz. Those guys in a fast break, they're going to sprint down into the corners and wait to be passed the ball. Ben is never going to be the guy that's going to be sitting there for 3 seconds, really getting set, really ready to shoot that.
And he shouldn't be.
Something we should expect because really,
it's a bad use of a guy who's 6'10", that strong and that fast. I mean, he said today, like, hey, I'm working on cutting backdooring and seizing those opportunities, setting screens. Like Ben Simmons should be a fabulous screener. He's got the body to be a great screener. I just think that there's so much that he can do off ball. But I do agree that if you're swinging the ball opposite, and you're reversing the play on the perimeter, and he happens to find himself with the ball in an open corner, take it. Like if you miss, fuck it. Everyone, I mean, and there's no one who's 100% 3-point shooter.
No, agree. Danny Green will be another guy that will sprint to the corner to create those driving lanes.
I'm excited for his availability tomorrow if he is available.
It'll be interesting to see. Okay, let's go back to Kyle, Charlottesville guy. Really want Justin Anderson to stick around this go round. How has he looked? Do we have any? I have not gotten any reports on how Justin Anderson is playing. I do know that Justin Anderson is another great teammate and maybe the best friend Joel Embiid's ever had as a teammate. So,
besides Jimmy Butler.
So Justin, if he's ready, if he's improved that catch and shoot, which with his mechanics is tough, but he's ready to defend and be a scrappy guy, then I think they'll find a place for him on a 20-man roster, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is also new to the media, like Doc and like all this player turnover and whatnot. That no one really asks, like, hey, like, what is Justin Anderson doing? But I mean, I think number one, if you look at those final three spots where it's between Derek Walton Jr., who, by the way, no one's even heard from yet, Ryan Brokoff, and Justin Anderson. I mean, Justin Anderson is, for a 15th guy, is of those three the most credible guy that can defend three positions on the court. And I mean, he can give you a little bit on offense, but he's mostly going to be that energy plug and maybe that guy to get Joel going. If he's slow or if he's not engaged. But I mean, I would say he's probably the favorite to make the camp or to make the team of those three. But I mean, everything he said so far has been great. I mean, he's very, very, very nice to the reporters. He tells everybody, like, you have a great question, which, I mean, it makes the reporters feel better because we're like, oh, we're getting validated by a player now. This is nice. But I mean, I just think he's a guy who understands what it takes. And I mean, he's been skipped over so many times in his career. This is his, like, he's been a back and forth with the G League. And I think he's a guy who sees his own value as someone who not only can give you some things on the court, but can also like, serve as a mentor. Like, hey, these are the things that, they're looking for at the next level. This is what you got to do. Like, don't, like this is where I am, this is where you can be. And let me save you some time and just like skip ahead to like, this is how you get on track. I mean, I don't know that he ever made any like maturity mistakes, but the one thing that he kept harkening back to in his first availability was, just being more mature and that kind of thing, which I don't know what that means to him, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's an immature person. I do think.
Did you hear anything that he did in the past? I haven't.
What's that?
Did you hear of any stories of him being immature in the
Oh,
past?
no, I wonder if he's talking about really sort of recognition, not missing calls, things like that on the floor. I don't think there's ever been a question or a complaint about his off the floor stuff. Pretty much universally beloved. There's a reason he keeps getting second chances. And also, he's very clearly the Frosty freeze-out guy, right?
Oh, for sure. There's no question about it.
He's got to be. So you got to factor that in as well. I know there are no fans, so we'll see about the Frosty freeze-out.
This is Nadir's first good comment in like 6 weeks.
He wants more tweets from me?
We need more tweets from Jason. We need more.
I've really dialed back on the amount of tweeting I do. I
don't know why. It must be your contractual obligation in 97.3.
I assure you that's not it. Okay, let's see. Third consecutive year we're talking about shooting. Fourth. Fifth?
Old dogs, new tricks. I didn't realize Ben was like 37.
Yeah. Mike counters with due to his years away from his prime. I agree with that. So, okay. Anderson brings bigger wing defense, something the Sixers don't have a lot of. That is true. That is his golden ticket to making this team. Yeah, but it's going to actually tell us philosophically what they really believe in. Because, if you look at this camp roster, Morey basically snapped up anybody that could shoot 40% from the 3-point line that has a history of it, and threw them all into camp. Now, some of that might just be teaching the Sixers defenders how to defend 3-point line. So you want as many of those sort of scout team snipers as you can get. But if a guy like Ryan Broekhoff makes the team over a Justin Anderson, what that tells you is this team wants to outscore other teams, and they're not worried about who the fourth or fifth best defender on this team is. They want to break other teams' will in half-court offense. So that will also tell you how they feel about Matisse Thybulle. That will tell you how they feel about Shake Milton's progress on the defensive end. So I think the Ryan Broekhoff, and I don't want to use Ryan. Maybe he's not on the bubble. But if you look at the bubble guys that I think are borderline, Justin Anderson versus Ryan Broekhoff, that will tell you what I think they believe their philosophy is around how they best compete heading into the year.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is Broekhoff contractually is easier to trade than Justin Anderson because technically he's a re-sign, so he's not a new sign, which would have like 60-day conditions and things.
People were saying today, like when Wiseman and Draymond weren't in practice, like, oh, getting traded for Harden, and I was like, whoa, let's take a step back. Yep. They just signed Wiseman last week. They have to wait till like the end of December.
Yep. Green says if we can get Ben to about 22 points per game, 8 and 8, it'd be a huge step for him. I think he can do it. Just got to get to the line, be more aggressive. Totally agree about getting to the line, 100%. But for me, don't worry about points per game with Ben Simmons. Just worry about true shooting percentage. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. If Ben Simmons is at a 62, 65% true shooting percentage, then there are plenty of other guys that you can trust him to deliver the ball to that are going to knock down the shots that are going to generate team offense. So I'm not at all worried about how many points Ben Simmons scores per game. I don't think he'll ever be under sort of 16, just the way he plays downhill, the way he plays in transition. But you don't need to see him get the 22, 25, and don't ever expect Ben Simmons to be a 28, 30 point per game scorer. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think if you do that, your team is probably not winning many games because it means that he doesn't feel he can trust his teammates to make shots, and he feels like he has to do it himself.
Yep. Marky 215. I just realized you're all from the Zoom interviews. Appreciate that. We try to get them. Look, either Austin or I are going to be on virtually every one. I don't think we missed any so far.
I actively neglect my day job to be on these Zooms. So
no, don't say that.
That
is not a true statement.
Someday you'll probably find me doing it every day because I'll be fired by them. But
all right, let's talk about that. Have a laissez-faire approach to your income.
I promise you, I'm just kidding.
Bud Clementoni says, who's going to be the backup point guard? So Ben Simmons, we think, is the starting point guard. Ben Simmons leaves the floor after usually 8 to 10 minutes in the first quarter, sits for about 6 minutes. I think when we think about backup point guard, it's not necessarily the guy off the bench. It is who is running the offense during that 6-minute stretch in the first half and the second half when Ben is on the bench. Who is that guy, Austin?
I think that's one of the bullets that Daryl Morey is talking about when he says we don't want to waste all of our bullets now. Like I think to them that's like that. Maybe you look at George Hill as somebody you trade for, find a way to trade for. But I mean, right now, if Tyrese Maxey was a year older, I'd be 100% sure it'd be him. I guess it's got to be probably Seth Curry, maybe Shake. I also think that you have to be careful with like when you see their starting lineup, you have to be careful that you don't like overplay that 2-guard guy, because not only is he starting, but that could very well be Shake, could very well be Seth. You might also be deploying that guy as like your backup point guard. So I mean, you're essentially playing him like 16 straight minutes, maybe. Which you're going to burn him out fast. So I mean, I would guess right now it'd probably be one of Shake, one of Seth. But if Doc feels like he can trust Tyrese Maxey to like not lose the ball every time he touches it and to be credible on defense, I think it could easily be Tyrese Maxey, because he profiles more. Physically, he profiles more as a guard, and I think he was more of a sort of a half court, attack closeout kind of guy, and he was a little more versatile.
So let's look at Tyrese Maxey. He had a 18.7 assist rate in 31 games, but a 14% turnover rate.
Which is pretty good.
Well, it's like 1.3 assists to turnovers, which is not what you want from a point guard.
Yeah.
So I think if you go back to Shake, who was a combo guard in college, he was more in that 2-to-1 range. You really want your point guards to be at a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 for your real CP3 level floor generals. But I agree with you. It matters what happens in that first 10 minutes, because you're not going to – who's starting alongside Ben Simmons? And that personnel package that creates options for Ben to kick out. Seth is a really good one. Shake is another good one. But one of those two guys has to take a break there to come back on if they're going to take over point guard duties when Ben is on the bench. So that's something to watch for. I don't know that it's Maxey. Maybe this time next year we have a different view, but there's no real evidence that Maxey is like a floor general type. He might be more of a downhill, penetrate and kick type point guard, but right now, I don't know that he's got the pick and roll game, the floor general sort of run an offense game that might be expecting a lot.
Yeah, I tend to think that that's just going to be one of their Christmas items for the trade deadline. I know they wanted DJ Augustine, and I think the money that Milwaukee offered him was, they weren't going to compete with that.
John, watching Anderson's G League highlights, has worked on his 3-point shot. Every one of these guys shoots hundreds of threes a game. The thing I worry about
highlights are not lowlights. You don't always see the makes.
Yeah, he just has the type of mechanics that don't generally translate into consistency from three, where you say, all right, that guy, you can throw him out there and make him an outlet, and he's going to make threes once in a while. He's going to only take so many that some years is going to look like he shot fine, but there's a lot going on lower body where he's moving side to side or leaping inward towards the basket, and then he's got sort of that catapult sort of over the head release, which is just for most guys less consistent. So I don't see the mechanics.
I think he's the kind of guy that will really excel, but just reading and taking advantage of back cuts and using his athleticism in that way. Moving well with like off ball and misdirection plays to get like an open look. You're 100% right. There's a lot going on with that shot. It's a really long load up, and that doesn't really bode well for a wing, because that means you're also going to be a little bit slower than a guard.
Yep.
Typically, the wings that you're matched up against are going to have that length and that foot speed to recover and get back to you before you have a chance to get the shot off.
Yeah, the guys that shoot well with that, I'm thinking like maybe a Marc Gasol. They virtually have no movement below the waist at all. They are set. They have a tiny hop, and they just have that flick. He's got a lot going on in the lower body and a lot going on in the upper body. And with the more moving parts, like in baseball, the more moving parts in a swing, the less consistent that swing is going to be. And it's just not a guy I would count on. So Mike, the NBA guy, says, forget defending the three-point line. We need to finally learn to defend the pick and roll. I think Doc will solve that because we got killed under Brett Brown. So let's just review the philosophy of Brett Brown, because this was a huge focus in camp last year. They switched up a lot of their.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
So before we say like the philosophy of Brett Brown and like compare and contrast that, I think it's really important that because everyone read the articles that were coming out right before they fired Brett. I mean, they made it very clear that it was a very much analytically driven, collaborative environment. I mean, hell, everyone spent all summer like bitching about how like forget the collaborative stuff, all that. I'm very careful to say what was Brett Brown himself versus what was like, my hands are tied, everyone wants to do this, even though I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I on this. So I mean, now having said that, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll say, from having talked to a lot of people who watched a lot of it, there was a change before last season. That change didn't work, but the general premise was they wanted to, 2 years ago, they wanted to switch everything on a pick and roll. So they wanted guys that could sort of defend in space. They got killed sometimes with the switch everything philosophy because they had Marco Bellinelli, they had JJ Redick, guys that could really be hunted in isolation off of a switch. Last year, they wanted to really change things up and blitz the pick and roll more and fight over screens more. But the back line remained the same. They still played drop pick and roll coverage with your center. So you saw Joel Embiid drop back to defend the rim, and you saw them blitz, either fighting over a screen or blitzing with the other man to try to get the ball out of the ball handler's hands. What that leaves
is corner three.
Yeah, and you take away the corner three. But what that leaves is a really soft part of the floor, which is the exact spot we talked about Ben Simmons not shooting from, in that sort of 12 to 18 foot space. There's virtually no one guarding anyone. Now, Matisse Thybulle got a lot of blocks, recovery blocks, sort of chase downs on pull-up jumpers. You see a lot from behind where he would swipe coming back and recovering. That's because of their pick and roll philosophy. What you also saw was Al Horford's inability to really play drop pick and roll defense as a rim protector. A lot of confusion. He wasn't comfortable with that. The defense really fell off when he was asked to do that. So the things we should look for this year are, I expect them to play drop pick and roll coverage again. So what are they going to change at the point of attack? Are they
really do? Well, I think in theory it does make a lot of sense, because you don't want to like burn Embiid's battery out by having him like go out and like run the
hedge.
Hedge.
Yeah.
You don't want him switching on to like wings and having to like slide all over the place, stay in front of wings. Right. I think it makes sense in theory. Just the problem is, it's like, okay, now how do you counteract, and like what is the action around that screen so that way guys aren't walking into wide open mid-range jump shots?
Yeah, and there are guys in the league that if they know that shot's going to be there, they can shoot that sort of 55-60%. It is close to a layup in expected value. But in Brett Brown's defense, and I bring this up a lot, they won the Brooklyn Nets series by trusting this math, because they knew they could bait D'Angelo Russell into those shots, and he shoots 46% on those pull-ups, and that is under 1 point per shot. And they lived with that, and they came out sweep. And they looked really bad the one game where they got hot knocking those shots down, but they really just trusted the math and they stuck with it. Kawhi Leonard is a guy that you can't do this with. He can just kill you in mid-range. So DeMar DeRozan lived in the mid-range.
Kobe.
Those are guys you can't do it. So you have to have some flexibility and switch things up when you are playing against a guy that can just murder you like that. You got to switch things up. And the more competent on the ball defenders you have with size and length, the better. Because Ben Simmons can take that stuff away, but you don't have him for 48 minutes. He's a guy that can take away that option, and you don't have to do anything tricky. But he wasn't there in the Boston series. So, that's one of the areas that really hurt.
I think one thing that I've sort of picked up on is, like Doc said today, like one of the big things we're working on is just communication and attacking together on defense. And I think that's the kind of thing you say when you're expecting a lot of in-game adjusting and you're expecting, a lot of movement around pick and rolls and screens. And I think when you have it like the old regime did, where it's like, okay, the big is locked to the rim, everyone else is like locked to fighting over the screen or what have you.
Yeah.
It kind of, there's not a lot to do because everyone knows what their next move is. When there's a lot of adjusting and a lot of turnover from play to play, that's when you need that communication even more so, because you need to know where your teammate's going, because it's not as predictable. And I think that was sort of one of the things that maybe tipped me off, like, hey, they're going to look a little different defensively this year.
Yep, they should. Nadir says Furkan was teamed up with Ben, Joel, Tobias, and Seth in video today. Is he going to start? So that I would say, let's not think about starting, because the answer is probably no. Certainly by the time we get to February, I would say probably not. However, what this tells me is Shake probably is that backup point guard running the second team. So you think about who's the other five that these guys are playing against, and it's probably a team that Shake is running the offense for. So you've got your Dwight Howard, Shake, pick and roll. You've got your expect Danny Green, not today. Expect Tyrese Maxey. Expect Matisse Thybulle in that sort of second five. And what I read from this is Shake's running that second offense. So he's the guy that we just talked about, the backup point guard. He's the guy running the offense, at least initially, in those minutes when Ben comes off the floor. That's how I read it. Austin, thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think about it as deeply as you. I just kind of thought of, like, sometimes the bench players work with the first unit because it gives you a different look and a different insight into a lineup that you might want to use. But I think that's a good good supposition that you come to.
We haven't talked about Tobias. So Tobias, Milad. Milad, let me know. I think that was right. Tobias having a big year. Austin, thoughts?
As unbiased and as objective as I can possibly be as a journalist, I would say I really hope he does, because I just think that he's taken a lot of heat, and I think he was by default the GOAT, the scapegoat, I should say. For fans last year. So I would like to see him have a good year. I think in a simplified, more comfortable role, he'll have that. But I think one thing that, number one, is you have to put him where he's comfortable, and that seems to be power forward. And number two, he's not a catch and shoot guy. He's a guy that likes to, get his shots off the dribble. And I think the reason that we saw that the 3-point volume go down so much under Brett was because he just didn't feel like he was set up in a position where he was really organically, like, feeling himself going into shots. And he was more comfortable going into the mid-range from his role and from where he was initiating the possession, getting the ball. And that's why we saw him operating in that little mid-post area by the free throw line so much. But I suspect that, as one of basically their best perimeter wing, in terms of, like, creating a shot and on his own in a half-court set, I think they're going to put him in a position to have a big year.
All right, so I'm trying to read this question. I agree with you, John. Here's a big question: what coach and big made the hedge a point of interest in the league from its success?
Ooh, is that a trivia question? It's got to be a trivia question.
Okay.
I would probably say I want to say Duncan or Duncan or Robinson with Coach Pop.
All right. John will tell us if we're right. Okay.
Right. I was right. I got it.
There you go. Boom. All right. On the fly. This is not how trivia contests are supposed to go. We're supposed to ask the questions.
And I wasn't looking at my phone because I was looking up in the sky.
You definitely weren't. One screen guy. I'm a 3-screen guy, so I might have been doing it, but not you. Tobias gets traded for DeRozan against Rivers' preferences. Is that a good trade?
Horrible trade.
Yeah, agree.
It ruined your spacing. He doesn't take threes. It ruined your spacing.
Oh, wait, maybe you weren't right. Hint, they were on the Sixers.
Story of my life.
Oh.
Brett Brown in San Antonio. I have no idea. I'm lost now.
I mean, it's got to be Sean Bradley, right?
Probably is Sean Bradley.
Sean Bradley wasn't hedging.
Tyrone Hill.
Tyrone Hill. Skeletor.
I should have seen that coming.
That's awesome. Okay, that's great. Marky 215 says, please don't let Ferk start. He might start. We talked about this in past streams. He may get some starts early in the season, just as a security blanket, because Ben and Joel know where he's going to be on the floor. They know where to find him. While the team builds chemistry and cohesion, he may start some games early in the season. But I would be surprised to see Furkan starting come playoff time, certainly, or even in the second half of the season.
Or like rotation.
Yeah, I wouldn't overthink it if you see, Furkan start within the first 5 games. Not really indicative of anything else. Cody says, excited to see Dwight start his power forward. Is that an ESPN?
That was
ESPN slander?
That was embarrassing. That was someone did not check that graphic before they let it out. But what can you say? I didn't realize that Dwight had a bad post game. Like his post game wasn't very good in Orlando. Like he had the little hook over the shoulder, but he had to basically tough and like beat you down in order to get to the spot where he was comfortable. I mean, he was just a guy that was like rim diving, rim running, and putbacks.
Hey, look, the putback offense is the best offense there is. If
you
have a guy that dominant on the glass, like the putback offense, you've been to the park and you've played where there's just like one dude that's like 6'8", and you're like, okay, you're playing putback offense.
I played in rec league where there's
that guy, and it won't matter. Like all the bad players, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I've been in rec leagues where guys are like, you're just like, you think you're about to box out, and then the guy just flies over you and is dunking it, and you're like, well, like maybe I could go down to the JV rec league version. Well, let me ask you this: how much do you think the not having fans at home is going to impact that, not just them but teams in general? Because when I wrote my schedule breakdown piece, I kind of operated under the assumption that they would probably be as dominant at home. And I think they can be, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be home court in general is going to be about professionalism and routine and less about motivation. So I think the biggest knock on Joel Embiid that I've ever given him is I think he feeds too much off of energy, external energy sources, and doesn't just have that sort of workmanlike, sort of ruthlessly efficient, consistent game, right? That you get it night in and night out. I always point to he plays really well at home. He plays really well in high energy arenas, but boy, has this team struggled in places like Atlanta and Orlando and low energy arenas without a dominant big that he can get motivated to go roast. So you saw he had great games against Detroit because he wanted to embarrass them, even though there's only 6,000 people in the arena. But when you look at some of the stuff in Atlanta, in Orlando, in Washington, D.C., which is where I actually talked to him about this after the game, I think it's an area of concern that Joel can't rely on other people to get him hyped up for the game. He's just got to be that Tim Duncan, like completely just lunch pail, punch the clock, go to work guy. And I think the big thing I'm interested in is Doc is such an even-keeled guy. He was as a player. He is as a coach. They just keeps everybody on the same page, everybody moving the same direction. Whereas Brett Brown was much more of a motivator. He'd give his fiery speech. And I think that stuff works better at home than it does on the road as well. So we'll see. Does Doc have that calming effect that just puts these guys in just sort of lunch pail mode where they just go to work? And if so, then you're not going to see that big letdown when they don't have a crowd. But in general, I don't think home court advantage numbers are going to be nearly as good. You can't have guys out at clubs at night, right? Because of COVID. So even if they travel to an arena, there are just less things for them to do. They're going to be in their hotel, basically doing nothing. So you're not going to see a lot of the road partying that derails some teams. And the home team has an advantage because they're sleeping in their own bed. You're going to see less of that, I think, this year. All right. Bigger positive impact, the change in coaching or the change in the roster? Austin.
Whew, that's not an easy question. I think ultimately it comes down to the product on the court, no matter who your general is off the court. And I think this roster has given Embiid new life because he feels like he's finally the face, and they made decisions that were conducive to him succeeding. And I think it's also better for Ben as well because there's shooting. I'm going to say the roster change is going to unlock a lot of things for them that they didn't have the past year or two.
Shout out Justin. This guy puts in the work. Justin's going to be on our Seth Curry player preview tomorrow around this time. We're going to do that. So Justin says, Ben Simmons running down the court. Picture this, having Green and Curry running to the wings instead of Richardson and Korkmaz. We tolerate no Furkan slander, but Richardson was not the catch and shoot option that we maybe thought. I think you're going to see a big upgrade from Richardson to Seth Curry. I think fit-wise, that was a great trade for Ben Simmons, right?
For sure.
Yep.
For sure. I think both teams are better for it.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. How long have we been on? Hour and 15 minutes. We got 80 people on, so let's keep going. Keep giving us your questions, and we'll keep going. Why not? How much burn does Paul Reed get this year?
I would say plenty of
League. Plenty in the G League.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's the kind of guy that you enable because of his upside. Like, he's a guy that was, averaged like a bunch of steals, bunch of blocks at DePaul. And I mean, for his size, it was like impressive. And I think he's a guy that can the upside is a lot of defensive versatility, and that's why you drafted him. But I think right now he's a work in progress, G League.
Yep. And I'm excited to see him and Joe at the 76ers field house. Hopefully, we have access there. Even if fans aren't allowed there, hopefully we're able to be up in that upper level and just sort of watch the games up there, even if we don't have up close interview time. Being able to watch from that vantage point behind the basket, top down, will tell me a lot about what we can expect from Isaiah Joe. Love everything on tape with him, how effortless his release is. But Paul Reed is someone I really want to spend some time watching pregame, watching in the game, just sort of watching on the bench, all of the little things that we're able to see when we cover games in person. Do you think the Bluecoats opt out of the Atlanta bubble?
I don't. I was talking to an agent about this actually.
Okay.
He was talking to a G League GM, and they were pretty confident that everyone would be there, just because they put in so much equity into having that brand name team full of the top recruits. So I think that's going to be a good platform for all the teams to get more exposure. And for that reason, I don't think any team's going to skip that.
Yeah, I would agree. Those guys tend to like that. You think about the life of a G Leaguer, you're living out of hotels often anyway. A hotel in Atlanta is probably better than a hotel in Wilmington, Delaware.
Think?
Shout out Wilmington, Delaware. But I mean, come on, guys, Atlanta's a cool town. Reed's form has gotten better. Justin's back with shooting from the perimeter since college, if you've been paying attention to the tape. So first Justin calls out Furkan, then he calls me out for not paying attention to the tape. Okay, Justin, we'll see. We'll see.
Justin's a young blood. He's got to earn his stripes.
I like to watch guys in person before I weigh in, but that's all right. John Harris says, thanks, John, for joining us. No fans in the bubble, and Embiid was dropping 30 and 15. Right. No doubt. No doubt that's true. But I'm really looking at the body of work, and it's pretty consistent that Joel does feed off of crowd energy, even if it's negative energy in LA or in a place with rabid fans. He feeds off of positive and negative, high energy, high intensity situations. So I think he had something to prove to his peers in the bubble. And I also think Ben Simmons being hurt was a factor. He took on a lot of responsibility. I think he took a lot of responsibility for Brett Brown's job security. There were a lot of motivating factors in the bubble for Joel that just don't quite apply to the last 4 years of his career, and watching those ebbs and flows with his energy.
Yeah, he knew they were going to get knocked out in the first. He was like, all right, I'm going down guns blazing. You're not talk about me. And then he did his work.
I don't know about that. Kevin, thank you for joining us. How many minutes does Dakota Mathias get this year? In the G League, he's going to get 25, 30 minutes a night in the G League.
Probably be one of their featured players in the G League. I mean, he's a guy, probably the body, like the NBA physicality, that body that he has, I'm not quite sure.
Yep.
But I mean, that high release, it is just sensational. It's repeatable and it's damn quick. I like Dakota Mathias a lot.
So they're hoping to get a Duncan Robinson 2.0.
I've begun my pursuit of Duncan Robinson. I've begun looking at his contract on Spotrac, and I'm mapping out how the Sixers are going to poach.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Eric here. Probably, does he play a handful of games up at the NBA level? Probably, just with COVID and all of those things. In those games, we're talking about 5 minutes. He's going to get in. He'll get 2 shots, and if he's hot, he'll maybe play 12 minutes or garbage time. But as far as like planning your 240 minutes that you have to give out, he's not in the plan for those 240 minutes, in my opinion, yet. He might be completely electric and just shoots so well that they have to keep him around, and he keeps shooting well. But yeah, that's my expectation.
James Michael McAdoo.
What?
James Michael McAdoo. Remember that was a 2-way contract they had?
Oh yeah.
2 years ago? Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Popeye Jones. What does Popeye Jones bring to the coaching staff? Great question.
Well, he worked with Roy Hibbert and Paul George in Indiana and kind of helped them become part of what they are, or what they were. I mean, time will tell. I feel like that was a really popular name that was kind of hard to figure out why it was so popular. But I think he's a very good defensive-minded guy for big men who commands a lot of respect around the NBA. And I think I don't want to say that there was a lack of respect for the previous regime, but I think there was just this lack of NBA credential the previous regime had that it made it hard for them to like convince the players like take me seriously.
Yeah, a lot of those assistant coaches were sort of like transitioning on their way up a ladder versus just established guys. Popeye Jones as a player was like just super crafty. I think someone brought up Tyrone Hill, might have been John. Similar size, both like 6'9", not classic center size, but so many different little nuances to their game. And Popeye Jones is probably a better offensive player, but so many little vet things that he could do. Those are all the things you want him teaching your bigs, right? The little nuances of, put your hand right here, it's going to get called a foul, but if you put it right here real quick, it bumps them right off a little bit of their rhythm, and you get away with that stuff.
That's right.
On a box out, if you just angle this way, you create a little bit more space. It's all the finer points that Popeye Jones made a really long career out of. That those are the things you want him passing along. What I'll say is with Roy Hibbert, I watch Roy Hibbert a lot working out with the team in practices and pregame, and I didn't see that level of communication with Joel Embiid, where he's really like teaching him the finer points of the game. I didn't see that. Popeye Jones is a guy with all of the finer points. Okay. What are you laughing at?
No, someone sent me a funny meme, and I actually think that's a world of difference. What you said about the hand placement when you're guarding that post, because I mean you can really throw a guy off by where you put your hand as a post-up player,
Totally.
versus like putting it lower and then being susceptible to swing around and then a clip on the elbow and it's foul 3 on Embiid with like 6 minutes left in the first half. So, I mean, those are all subtle things that can really change the complexion of the game.
Yep, entirely agree. It's those finer points that coaches like a Sam Cassell and a Popeye Jones. Like Sam Cassell, just super crafty point guard throughout his career. Not a physically dominant, explosive player, and yet how many years did he play? 18 years? Something crazy. Like crazy amount of years. And was always helping his team, no matter what. Sam Cassell, your team was better for having him.
I think that's a great question, Tyrese Maxey thing. I actually, the more I watch him, I'm kind of getting more convinced of the idea that he can become like a Bradley Beal light. I mean, I know Bradley Beal averages 30 points a game. It's I don't expect that out of him, but I do think that he could be a guy that ends up being like upper teens, really like dynamic shot creator, can shoot from you can score from 3 different levels. I just like his speed and his ability to create space, number one. But number two, like he just isn't scared. Like he doesn't play like a guy who's even in college. He's like stepping into like these deep threes to make it like a 2-possession game in his first game as a collegiate. He has this certain swagger about him that I think you need to have in order to be that guy that can be the 21st pick that ends up as an all-star.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to give him Bradley Beal. What I would say is my goal for him would be De'Aaron Fox. If you can become De'Aaron Fox, you help this team tremendously. The frame is very similar. De'Aaron Fox probably more of a point guard, but not as good a form on his shot. So, become De'Aaron Fox. Become a fast. What's that?
Kentucky guy as well.
Kentucky guy. They seem to do okay with guys making it to the next level. Let's go back to John. Jones was 6'7" with the biggest butt ever in the NBA. I don't know. Charles
Barkley was
and oh god, what was his?
Jack?
What's that?
Jack?
No. Rick Mahorn. With that really big butts. He was a really good post player. I agree. Hill was more of a defender. Agree entirely there. When I talked about that craftiness, I agree with what you say. They each had the finer points on the opposite ends. Okay. Let's see. Wait. Eric Wiggins, Maxey is not afraid of the big shot. That's huge. You really have to, before you can make a lot of big shots, you have to be really comfortable taking them. So that's huge. Eric, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Maxey is on
a little
offense and Fox. Don't agree with that at all.
Fox is on a good team is probably an all-star, and he's a max player in some degree, I guess. In Kings, really, he's a max player. Yeah,
the Aaron Fox made Malik Monk the number 10 or whatever pick in the NBA. Yeah. All right, so let's get into some more. Okay, Beal is a full-size 2-guard. Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, Dinwiddie is bigger than Beal, actually. Dinwiddie is 6'6".
But I mean, like, think about that. That's like, remember how I said if you can get him into the upper teens, I mean, that's kind of what Dinwiddie is. Just because someone says that the ceiling is Beal doesn't mean that you think they're going to be Beal. It just means that in best case scenario, their best world, they end up like Beal, somewhere out, like Thon Maker's best case scenario, his ceiling was Giannis Antetokounmpo. It didn't work out. He didn't come close, but that's what the profile is for a best case scenario, and I think that's what it is for Maxey too.
Well, Maxey, when he met with us right after the draft, he pointed to Drew Holiday as the archetype and Jamal Murray. So those are the two guys. Yeah, and if you think about the Jamal Murray comp, where he can run as a point guard, but you've got a bigger player really initiating offense. It's an interesting comp. So if he can become Drew Holiday on defense or Jamal Murray on offense, either one of those, you've got a really, really useful player. But that's a high bar. Justin says Maxey's body can put on muscle more than Fox. He's a bit more slight. I agree, but you just have to watch how much weight they actually put on. Not everybody does, and they don't do it at the same rate. Yola Boy says, "Do you see Joe being better than Korkmaz?" So I think
everybody's better than Korkmaz. I don't think Korkmaz is very good.
How dare you? 12% of our audience hates you right now. I think Joe has exactly the same challenge, and we've talked about it before. He's got to put on NBA level strength, and his struggles early in his career are going to be the same that Furkan had, which is strength and lateral quickness. Okay. Adam Hockenberry says, should we pump the brakes on Maxey? Yes. As far as expectations go, re-COVID, not everyone can easily come back to that. Look at the EPL slowly recovering after being healthy. Yeah, I will say one thing one positive note is we are seeing him in a gym. I'm guessing Rondo and some of the other guys you see him working out with are also in that protocol. So there's no evidence that he's ill in any way. And we're seeing pretty consistently video of him working out in LA in the gym. So, I do think our expectations for a rookie are too high on this team, but I think we're excited about his upside.
I will say this. I do think that we really have to grade these kids on a curve because I mean, think about what they're doing this year. They are, number one, trying to find their way through the NBA. Number two, trying to navigate in most 99% of cases a new city. Number three, stay safe from a pandemic that is killing thousands of people every day, and then like worry about their families as well. So I mean, this is a very, very, very hard year to be a rookie in the NBA, and it's incredibly unprecedented, and there's really no way to advise them through it other than just take a deep breath, take it one day at a time, and get help if you need it.
Yeah, and but the flip side of that for a rookie is, some of the pitfalls as a rookie are you're suddenly a millionaire. You're suddenly living on your own. You were either on a campus or at your parents' house, and now you're a millionaire with your own place in a big city, right? That's the life of a professional athlete.
Sign me up right now.
Sign me up. But there's a lot that a rookie can struggle to adjust to that lifestyle. In a pandemic, you're not going out to the club. You're ordering
Chinese takeout. Woohoo!
Exactly. So I think that some of the pitfalls may be reduced, and it might actually be easier to fit into the drudgery of becoming a professional, going to practice every day, just being consistent and focusing 100% on your craft versus the lifestyle. Justin says you can check out video of Maxey's workout on the Painted Lines Twitter.
Good Twitter channel. Those guys are good.
Twitter channel. We should tweet more often. Apparently, that's what I learned today. I should tweet.
Don't have to tell me twice.
Nadir says,
I thought he left.
As soon as you said something, you were coming.
He left. What is that?
Coming after your neck. You 12% of our viewers are from Turkey, and we appreciate absolutely every one of them.
There's definitely a hit on me in Turkey. Like my face is on some sort of like wall, and it's just like a bunch of like murals of like graffiti on my face.
Because Erdogan is just
that
a huge Furkan fan, and you just really upset like a very powerful man. 80 million people in Turkey. Don't disrespect that country's put out so many great pros. Put respect on Turkey's name. What is it that you see that Doc doesn't? The topic is Korkmaz. What is your concern? If Doc loves him, why don't you love him also, Austin?
I just don't buy that Doc loves every single player on the roster, number one. I think that's ridiculous. Number two, doesn't move fast. Is very, very slow for an NBA wing. I also think that maybe he was young when he did it, but the trade request that he filed after, just because he wasn't getting enough playing time as somebody that really had no equity and no reason to get playing time, but I thought was a showing of character. I think he's learned from that, though, so I won't hold that against him.
Okay, let me defend him again because I'm the chief Furkan defender. He actually said that to me when that came out. So things to understand about that time in his life. His family was over, and I've said this before. His family was in Philadelphia from Turkey. None of them speak English. They were basically trapped in his apartment. They were unhappy. He was not getting any playing time. His entire family came over here to watch their son play professional basketball. They were miserable. They weren't acclimating to the city, and he's not playing. So he really, early in that season, really wondered what he was doing here. And I think he's gotten through that. And I think he's a much different,
I agree,
happier person.
I agree. It doesn't mean like you have.
I don't think it's a character thing at all.
No. I don't think he's a bad person at all. I don't think he comes off as a very, very nice guy. I just think you have to understand the context that you don't have a lot of leverage and equity here. I mean, you're an expendable back end of the rotation piece at that point in your career, and you're requesting a trade. But I understand what you're saying. Now, having said that, on the court, I will say that he's become a remarkably good, like, sequential dribbling off ball guy. The official Sixers very good.
Hey, listen. Name another Sixers, name another NBA live stream where you get Adam Smith and Erdogan in the same live stream.
Erdogan,
it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
Well, yeah,
you're welcome.
But anyway, I think Furkan, I just think that his shooting numbers are very much like inflated by the fact that they're coming on like transition looks, coming on open looks. He typically misses a lot of shot when the closeout's quick. And I just think he moves not quick enough. I just don't think he moves quick enough to defend at an NBA level. And that's it. Ralph Films is not happy with what I'm saying right now. I'm sorry. I just think the way I think.
Oh my. He said, oh my. Ralph, are you really George Takei? It's cool if you are. I appreciate it.
Who's George Takei?
Okay, so we've got a Seth Curry preview pod tomorrow at 6 p.m. Justin's going to be on there. Are you going to be on that one tomorrow?
I guess so. I'll have to check with my publicist.
Yeah. We should all check with our publicist. Everyone,
secretaries and assistants.
We're going to give you 5. We're going to give you 5 more minutes, rapid fire questions, and we're just going to throw them up here and answer them. John says Korkmaz is a very poor man's Kyle Korver.
Doesn't have the gravity. I think he's more like a Stojakovic, poor man Stojakovic.
Some might say a homeless man Stojakovic. Love Stojakovic.
Yeah.
I mean, if he could be a poor man Stojakovic, you don't let him go.
Can I ask why your voice is like this? Oh, that's at you.
I don't know. Mark Bernstein, can somebody explain to me why the Sixers needed to create roster room if they only had 20? No. Maybe they want to sign some more guys. But I think it was pretty just standard behavior. Adam Hockenberry says favorite autocrat. You know what? Listen, I would love to get in Erdogan.
What? Erdogan?
He runs Turkey. He's the Vladimir Putin of Turkey. That's all I need to say about it.
All right.
I'm not weighing in with my opinion. I'm just saying we have a lot of people from Turkey that watch, and we appreciate them. Okay, for what Furkan gets paid, he's okay, cheap depth shooter, much better third or fourth shooter on the team. That's my thing is you put him out there on those nights that he's hot, you leave him out there. When he goes over 3, you pull him and you stick one of these other snipers in. All right. How are you, Krell? Sorry if I came as mean, but Kai definitely picked up his game.
Listen, I will never knock Kai Carlin. He has his job is his bosses like it done a little differently than some other people do it. Kai's a grinder. He works his tail off. He's very nice guy. Not going to knock Kai Carlin for the way he does things. Now, as for being mean, wasn't mean to me, so I don't really have much of a comment about it. I would just say it's not about the length of the article. It's about what the article says. What's the substance? And
everybody knows Austin's dad loves Kai more than his own son.
Kai, my dad reads Kai more than he reads me.
Yep. Ralph Films says, I hate them. I'm Armenian. Turkey sucks.
Wow.
I think there are a lot of Armenians in Turkey. And I think that's a very complicated history. Armenia has been through a ton. That's contract length.
Oh boy.
Been through a ton, and I didn't want to just ignore your comment, Ralph. So thank you for that comment. Armenia has been through a lot, and I have nothing but respect for it.
There was a genocide, right? The Armenian genocide, or did I make that up? That's a thing, right? I wasn't a history guy.
You didn't make it up.
We got $5.
Okay. Well, let's say Furkan brings no more to the team than Kyle Korver would right now. Is there a chance of getting Buddy Hield? I think Rufus, we really appreciate it. Buddy Hield would require Danny Green.
Did we get the $5? I'm very confused by this.
I don't either. I know nothing about it. This is a free podcast, Rufus. We love it. Feel free to continue to support us. We really do appreciate that.
Millie would be great, but
we're not charging you for this. Not like some other outlets.
You can charge for us.
What's that?
You can charge us. I mean, I'm happy to come on your pod. You can pay me like $35,000. It'd be great.
Rufus, if you have something you want to plug, let us know. We'll plug it for you, and we'll call it advertisement fee. So really appreciate that. Buddy Hield, making the contract work, Dawson. How do you make the Buddy Hield money work now that you've traded some pieces?
I'm very sure that's a name that they're looking at. They're again bullets. They want to save bullets. They want to see what they have, what they don't have. That money works. It's like Danny Green, like probably Matisse or Shake. That's probably how that works. And then some picks. One thing we have to really have to be cognizant of is that the trade exception does not count in a situation where you're giving up players as well. It only works when you're not when you're not giving up any salary in return. Basically like if you're trading a second round pick for an expiring guy worth $8 million, that's when that trade exception can come into play. But the trade exceptions they have, the $8 million for the Al Horford deal, that doesn't really work in terms of like making a Buddy Hield thing work. So I mean, it's gonna have to be picks. It's gonna have to be Danny Green and like another player or two.
Yep. I think Danny Green has to be part of that. Rufus says, my kid lives off super chats. I always throw what I enjoy. Really do appreciate that. Really do appreciate that. Appreciate
Chick-fil-A night, baby. Let's get it.
Every time I look up and I see how long we've been going, every night we do this, and I look at it's over an hour and a half, and we still got a ton of people on. It's surreal, but we really do appreciate everyone. Adam is getting in on the action. Adam, let us know what you want to plug. We'll call it an advertisement fee. Okay. Mark Bernstein says, I don't follow the Kings, but why the Hield love? What does he give you that Curry doesn't?
I think he has the capacity. I think he has the capacity to get off shots in a more prolific way. I mean, he's a prolific guy, can shoot the ball, has a lot of gravity. Really, really, really quick release. I think he's a little bigger than Seth Curry too. Obviously, Seth is a better creator in some respects, but I think just Buddy's the kind of guy that can give you like 7 threes, really at any given night. And I think he's just a more prolific shooter than what Curry brings. But I mean, if you would have told me that like they'd have Seth Curry now, I think that can be just as fine and just as impactful. If it were up to me, like if I'm the one that's making the decisions, I'm channeling my money and my assets and as much possible towards getting Zach LaVine from the Bulls.
Yep.
That's a chess piece that can elevate you from like a 3rd or 4th seed to like this team can win the East.
Yep, I agree. And I think when we went live on draft night, there were a lot of different ways they could have made Zach LaVine's money work. It's a little more difficult now. But I almost feel like tomorrow when the Danny Green contract is
you covering that tomorrow, by the way?
We'll see. We just got the email. When that trade is finalized tomorrow, he cannot be traded for 60 days. So we'll see where that bumps against the trade deadline.
I think it's in like March. which would put us at January, February, 60 days. How would you look at that a month before the trade deadline?
Yep. So it's going to be interesting to watch Chicago and really what they do, because the East just got better with some of the recent trades. I think the Westbrook going to the Wizards. Atlanta has gotten better. I think Chicago wants to make the step back into relevance.
I don't see it.
If they don't, then Levine's going to want out, and it'll be interesting to see. John says Seth Curry's contract is too great. One of the best contracts in the entire league. Bogdanovich, which one? We're talking about Bojan, Gallinari. Bogbog just got paid, so it's not Bogbog's contract.
Yeah, I don't.
Bojan. Bertans has a great contract. Well, he just got paid too, right?
Gallinari, yeah, he got $360, I think.
And Bertans just got paid way too much, I think.
Bertans got made less than Joe Harris did, which shocked me because Bertans is a way better player, I think. This is a good question right here from Mark. You see a Harris, Shake, Scott, and picks. I stop whenever I see a Harris deal because that money is just so exorbitant and overwhelming that there's just no way that, number one, that a team's going to help you get off that contract and simultaneously give you a superstar asset in return. I just don't think there's any world where any of those trades happen. If anything, it's going to be like a trade a year or two from now when that contract is more palatable over 2 years, where it's like, okay, this is we're all going to lose this trade because we have to, the money's the money, but let's do something that fits better. So
I don't know that those guys actually fit any better with Westbrook. Westbrook's tough to fit around. You really he's
surround him with shooters,
right? And Steven Adams. Okay, so let's see. John says I would have taken RJ Hampton. I'm very happy with Maxey. Do you have a take on that?
RJ Hampton was not one of my favorite prospects. I just thought that he didn't really do much of anything too great. I liked his ability to get downhill and sort of handle the ball, and I thought his athleticism was there. His burst was there, but he just to me, I thought I was watching like Dante Exum or Michael Carter Williams, and I just wasn't very impressed with anything I saw.
Yeah, and those are exactly the kind of guys that can look good on a bad team when you just give them the ball all the time. Exum obviously just busted out, never made it, a lot of injuries. But those are the guys you worry about. You really do worry about guys that need the ball in their hands that much. John Harris, Joe Harris's brother, I believe. Do you think we will see more low post pick and rolls from Simmons and Embiid? They ran against the Clips last year and it worked. So
I like that question a lot. I do. I think Doc was very careful to say, like last week, I think we're going to run more pick and rolls, but he didn't want to say that it was going to be necessarily Ben and Joe. I think there's an avenue where that can work, and I think it involves that low area. Like there were plays against the Clippers last year where they did. Yeah, I mean, you John, you got it. You hit the memory in my head for sure. I would say yes. I think there's going to be some usage of that. I mean, eventually you're just going to have to run it with Ben and Joe because you don't have a plethora of ball handlers.
Yep. Here's a question. Who's more overrated, Westbrook or Kyrie Irving? If you could, so for me, if you could take Russell Westbrook for the first 46 minutes and then Kyrie Irving for the last 2 minutes, you have exactly what you want. But I personally am not convinced Kyrie Irving helps a team win unless it is a close game with 2 minutes left. I just don't think he makes a team better. Westbrook, I do think, makes a team better because he just stresses opponents in pretty specific ways. But in the playoffs, everybody plays better half-court offense.
I have said this for years, and I'm going to maintain it until the day I die. Russell Westbrook contributes to losing as much as he contributes to winning. Turns the ball over way too much. His shot selection is horrendous. His decision making is suspect. And I mean, I think he ultimately intends as good as possible. I just think sometimes he tries to do way too much. And I mean, at this point in his career, it should be like a jump shot every 7 or 8 possessions, and then like hope for the best. But it shouldn't be like 18 mid-range jumpers a game. It shouldn't be threes. Like in Houston, when they got rid of Capella, that was like the best he's played in his entire career. Reduction in threes, more just like burst and driving and attacking the rim with reckless abandon. I mean, you get him downhill, he's like one of the 3 best players I think you've ever seen in the NBA. Well, not ever, but like in this era.
I mean, he's as a downhill player, absolutely, he's way up there.
Yep.
He's like the Clyde Drexler, Michael Jordan sort of downhill players. The problem is when he gets leveled out and can't get downhill whenever he wants. It's not great. Against elite teams, he can't just take you over the top. All right, Austin, you were on with Doc today. What's your takeaway from the availability?
I think Doc is attempting to. I don't want to say that this isn't like what he usually is like, because I don't know, but I think he's trying to endear himself to the best players in the team and try to win them over, get them on his side. Because if you can get them on your side, then you're going to set the precedent of they listen to me. If the stars listen to me, so do you. Shake, whoever. But I think my early impressions are they're not going to give away too much. They don't have rotation set yet, so don't ask about it. But they're just trying to incorporate things as quickly as you possibly can in this compressed time period. I mean, training camp began yesterday, and we're like a little over 2 weeks from the first game of the season. So I think it's number one is trying to get to know each other, trying to figure out what works, what fits. But from what I've sort of read, heard, and seen, ball movement, off-ball movement, understanding of basic offensive philosophies is a big thing for them. And I think we're going to see more ball movement this year.
Yep. And I'll say, if you've ever been in a band and prepped for a live gig, early on with a band, you jam out and everybody sort of free form just finds their way to play with each other. And then you really try to hone it down and get to a set list and play very specific things. And then sort of your last practice before a big gig, you'll go back to sort of like playing loose and, moving around within the structure. And I think if we equate training camp to that, we're still in the phase of like, he's probably just rolling the ball out, putting 5 on 5 on 5 and letting guys play and watching sort of what everybody naturally does well on the floor and what they want. And you'll see probably he'll start installing more structure, in the next couple of days heading towards that first game, which I think is next week, right?
Put me on the electric triangle. Yep.
The electric triangle. Look at you. Bing.
Yeah, that's me.
Not the cowbell guy?
That too. Whatever. I'll smack my head against the drum if that works.
Okay. Harris has a hard time becoming an efficient catch and shoot shooter rather than ball dominant rhythm scorer. That's probably fair.
I have a theory for that. I think when he catches the ball, his hand placement slides more to the side than right in the middle of the ball when he catches. And as a result, it can sort of mess up his the trajectory of the shot. Whereas when he's more in a rhythm, he has time to get a better feel for the ball and is ultimately going to rise up where he wants to and is comfortable where his hand naturally goes. But if you look at some of the stills of him catching and shooting, the hand is more off to the side than it is down the middle, and that can lead to side spin and ultimately a misfire. Yep,
I think being a catch and shoot shooter is totally different skill than off the dribble shooter, and I think you nailed it. John Harris says Tobias not having to be our 3-point guy. I think John may also be related to Tobias Harris as well.
Harris is this guy's related to.
He said, "Look, there's a family tree. I can't go into the whole thing.
Devin as well. Devin Harris is
there's a ancestry.com. It all figures itself out.
Ed Harris.
3-point go-to guy will help him and the team. I agree, because I think Harris can initiate in the pick and roll, and having some guys around him, he can make some quicker decisions. Doc did say the other day he wants him to be quicker with his decision making.
Yeah.
He saw him taking too long last year under Brett Brown. Okay.
I think also, like, the pressure is off of him to not be this like you're the guy that's here to stretch the floor. Like, be our like take us home, Tobias, with like the 4 or 5 threes per game. That's not his game. If you condense things, I think his life will be easier.
Yep. Okay, let's go to a couple of last ones. We're almost at 2 hours. We might even have another stream scheduled for tonight.
Nathan has a wife to get to. Okay.
Yep. Austin's got to go try to get his dad to read his articles.
I got
Sixers Wire. Get him onto the painted lines.
My dad was reading a wire and he saw that my tweet was tagged into Kai's story, and he like had like a stroke. He was like, holy shit. What's this from?
Is it possible that Shake and Dwight can be comparable to Sweet Lou and Harrell? That's an interesting comp, but I do think that Shake and Dwight as a pick and roll tandem is interesting. Shake's certainly done it with Norvell Pell. Through Norvell Pell, a ton of lobs over the years. Dwight is going to be every bit as good as Norvell Pell in the pick and roll offense. A lot of the same stuff there. So I do think they can run a lot of that stuff like they did. Yeah, I think it's a good comp. Okay. I had dinner. Austin, did you have dinner?
I have pizza downstairs.
You got to get to your pizza. Okay.
And I'm going to use the $10 we made to pay for it too.
There you go. There you go. All right. I think that's it. Final thoughts.
I'm very curious to hear from Danny Green in the next couple of days. I think he's going to be if not a trade piece at the deadline, a very significant player on this team. I think the 3-time champion, that pedigree is huge.
Who's the one young player you want shadowing him at every step?
I guess Matisse, right? It got to be Thybulle.
Yep. Agree. Okay, awesome. Thanks everyone who tuned in. I've been watching. Once you guys got here, you stayed here. That's huge. We really appreciate it. Look at our player preview videos. We're going to go through everyone in detail. We've already got Shake. We've already got Furkan. We've already got Ben Simmons. Tomorrow will be Seth Curry back here, same time, probably a different crew, but we're going to give you every bit of what to expect from Seth Curry. And again, thank you to everyone for continuing to just show up, interact, and tell your friends. Follow Austin at...
Tell your mother, tell your father, tell your grandfather. I mean, anybody. Even the Amish, your Amish neighbor that doesn't have a computer.
I want to see everyone in the Harris family, extended family, here on the live stream next time. You can follow me. Apparently, I need to tweet more at jblevinsnba. And watch us on our YouTube. Appreciate that. And read our stuff on thepaintedlines.com. Thanks, everyone.